Welcome to Queer in Science, Theology, Philosophy, and Spirituality, QSTTS, the Center for Science, Philosophy, Theology, and Spirituality. And that's a great song by CC Winans, Without Love. I love it so much. Love is the key, and we need love. It was a great album by CC Winans, Alabaster Box. One of the best albums of my lifetime. And without love, they to profit. All wasting time. Let's keep on loving love, not war. All right. We're back. We are on Time is Life and Timeline Lifelines. And we've been studying time that's happened in the world called time. And it's very interesting that human nature or the human race, when it came to it, we would have decided to be like animals and never thought to know Eve, if the story is true, ate from the tree. Yes, I am. Reason being, they ate from the tree of knowledge of the video. I don't know why it had to be a tree of evil, because it means humans know good and evil. And you know both good and evil very well, And that's why progress is both good and evil. We're going to have, much as we are progressing in science, we're also progressing in war. People are fighting each other. They're hacking phones. They're hacking computer systems. Look at America. They are having elections and they're scared about Russia because Russia interfered in the election of 2016. You're joking. The world has become more crazy and more in the name of progress. Yes. People are getting more nasty. And at the same time, people are getting more. It's unbelievable. Same-sex love is increasing as much as homophobia is there. So there is a lot of, it's a weird, progress is double-edged. It's a double-edged sword. You have to be prepared for both sides of progress, positive. The world is positive and negative. We have the sun and the moon, day and night. So, world or in a positive world, we'll have both positives and negatives. Look at your body. You have a right hand, you have a left hand. You have a right eye, you have a left eye. You have a right hand-sided brain, you have a left hand-sided brain. You have, so just live life. And balance. You balance between the positive and negative. Some days you're happy, some days you're sad. Some days people die, some days people are born. Some days there is violence, some days there is peace. Sometimes you make money, sometimes you make losses. Sometimes you break up, sometimes you join. It's life. Personally, these days I don't mourn at many things like, divorce. It happens. It's sad, but it happens. That's the negative side of marriage, negative side of love. That sometimes you may not stay, you're not able to stay together. I remember telling some people that they shouldn't push when they're supposed to, in a relationship, you're demanding to be with a person. No, sometimes you're not meant to be together. And sometimes you have to just accept. Breakups are not nice. It's not that we're working to break up. It's that it's irretrievable. It can't be worked on. So that's the world we're living in. Progress comes in a double-edged manner, And some people like daytime, others like nighttime. Look at the owl. Do you see owls in the day? In fact, in Africa, if you see an owl in the day, it's a bad omen. You're not supposed to see an owl during the day. You should see it at night. And I remember in school one time it appeared during the day and everyone was scared. They just said something big is going to happen today. And so, yeah, so even in nature, some animals work very well during the day. Other animals work very well at night. That's why some people say, I'm nocturnal, I like doing things at night, like doing things during the day. And others work the whole 24/7. It's so weird. They don't sleep. Have you seen a sleeping tree? They don't sleep. They're always alive for a long time. And that's how it is. So before I get too philosophical, let us go to what has brought us here. And I was just talking about time. So it's beautiful. Electricity. And why I wanted to do electricity, I was one day attending a conference and the pastor was preaching about fire. And I thought to myself, actually electricity is fire. Fire is a process. It's a process. And another thing, a component of fire is that fire has light and fire has heat. Now, the only thing we are yet to find out is whether fire has charges, but it should have charges because it is a process that involves the combustion of gases. And gases, since they have matter, they have charges. Since gases are material, they have charges. Everything material has charges. And understand about nature and life. And I'm here to study power. When Jesus said virtue left his body, was that virtue material? If it was material, then could it have its end? Could it be magic? Because magic should be material. Anything that can be felt, like fire, could be material. Anyway, I'm going to do that research on my own, spiritual science. But basically, electricity, I thought to myself that electricity is fire because it can come on, it has light. Have you seen lightning? Lightning is electricity. It's natural electricity. And you see light. And when lightning strikes a tree or something, it can cause fire. Yes, it can cause fire. And people are electrocuted. That's why when there's lightning strikes and it strikes a tree, it can even destroy a tree. So electricity is even destructive. And sometimes when there's an electric fault, there is fire. And fire comes with light. And light comes with heat. And look at the sun. It gives us heat and light. So the sun is a fireball. So electricity could be, if you want to be a spiritualist, you can say electricity is solar energy. It is the sun in action. Because the sun is also hot, it causes fires. When the sun is blazing hot and the sticks on the ground are together, it will cause a fire. And the earth is deciding to smoke cigarettes and then burns up the whole house of the earth. And then it produces heat. Have you noticed when there is moonlight, there is no heat? Reason? The moon doesn't have its own light. The moonlight is actually sunlight reflected. And it's the beauty of the moon is that it's a luminous body. It allows light, it absorbs light enough for it to shine on the earth. It's thoroughly beautiful. We live, I'm telling you, when you enter into cosmology, you just enjoy life. And some people think when you're cosmological, you are out of reality. No, it's not being out of reality. It's just a higher reality. Higher reality. And I encourage you to get into cosmology. So electricity is related to fire, it's related to the sun, it's related to lightning, all of those things. And now we want to go through these, and so you have to understand the electricity. If it is charges, basically it's charges. And I want us to look at the definition before we come back here. Let's look at the definition. Oops, it's not changing. Okay, electrical engineering, there it is a professional that deals with the study and application of electricity. So let's study electricity. Electricity is a set of physical phenomena associated with the presence and motion of matter that has a property of electric charge. So this is electric charge. And what is electric charge? It is a physical property of matter that causes it to experience a force when placed in an electromagnetic field. So this is the relationship between forces, field, and what is an electromagnetic field? It is a physical field produced by electric charged objects. So when objects are electrically charged, they will produce what you call a field, an electromagnetic field. It is in this field that when force is released, it produces electricity. So let's go back to work. And history of electricity. Timeline. We are doing timelines, and we want to see when did we find. And then another thing you need to know, as we've been saying in these videos of timelines, is please understand electricity has existed in the world ever since the world existed. And magnetic fields existed. Even now, as I told you, I'm so interested in cosmology. Can you imagine there are how many? Before we get back here, let's go back and see how many planets are in the cosmos. In the cosmos. And then I'm going to ask you that question. All right. Okay, the internet is a bit dragging. Of course, not transgender dragging, but dragging slow. Okay, come on. All right. So we want to count how many planets are, or we want to find out how many planets are in the cosmos. And with at least 200 billion galaxies out there, and possibly, not impossibly, possibly even more, we are very likely talking about a world with around 10 to the power of 24 planets. Are you seeing? Do you know why this is important? It's very important because it means, ask yourself, that power, the ether power, what are those forces that are keeping planets suspended in space? Do you know the Earth is not falling, and it has never been falling ever since it has been in the galaxies? My goodness. Look at that. Billions and billions and billions magnetic forces, and these electromagnetic forces, and these gravitational forces. You see, that's why we are drowning in cosmology right now. You know, we've read the Bible enough. Now it's time to do and study cosmology in depth. And that's what I was trying to tell you. So I want to even study and find out, why are the planets hanging? They are still hanging. What are these forces? You know, how did they come to being? If you remove these forces, will the planets fall down? And if they fall down, where do they fall down to? Is there down in cosmos? Is there up? Where are we? My goodness, we are lost in this world. It's so beautiful. So that's the beauty of science. It makes you're so interested in everything. So now we go through the timeline of electricity. So that's electricity. It is force that is active in an electromagnetic field, and it's very highly charged. So these charges then move, and that's why you have electric current. You know, just like you have a water current. Now the charges also have a river. You know, the river of charges and not the river of water is now you have rivulets. These are currents of electricity running like a river, straight line, you know, straight, or curved line. You know, rivers are not necessarily straight. They are also curved. And that's the same with the currents of electricity. Just travels like a snake, you know. Beautiful. So, we want to see how people knew electricity. And Thales of Miletus discovered static electricity by rubbing fire on substances such as amber. So, static electricity was found in 600 BC. But please let me tell you, it has existed even in the time of Moses. Yes, it has existed even in the time of ancient Egypt. But they didn't know. They didn't know. They just saw lightning and they said that's God Thor working. And so, but Thales discovered static electricity. Then in 1600, William Gilbert, just imagine 1,000 years after Thales did his work of rubbing fire on substances. 1600, William Gilbert coined the word electricus after careful experiments. And then, 100 years later, look at the years. They started reducing in number because people now are studying. At first, the first study, 1,000 years passed and nobody even bothered to think of what static electricity was or electricity was. Then in 1600, William came and he created electricus. Then Francis Hauksbee made a glass ball that glowed when spun and rubbed with the hand. So again, rubbing. Are you seeing? Rubbing produces electricity. And then rubbing again produces electricity. And when he rubbed the glass ball, it was spinning, but you rub it with the hand. And so whenever you rub something, charges are released. You see, rubbing fire on substances. Fire was rubbed on amber, and he found static electricity. You know, rubbing. And have you noticed when you rub your hands, you get very warm? Yes. Why? It's heat. And remember what I told you. Electricity has fire, therefore has heat. So that the sign of heat is the sign of electricity, is a sign of charges. And English scientist Stephen Gray made distinction between insulators and conductors. And then the German physicist Ewald Georg von Kleist and Dutch scientist Broch invented the late gas. 1752, American scientist Benjamin Franklin showed that lightning was electrical by flying a kite and explaining how hidden jars. So, lightning was found to be electrical because it produces light. Electricity therefore can produce light and, as I've told you, fire. When he knew this when he struck a kite. Then in 1780, Luigi Galvani discovered the galvanic action in living tissue. So you see, living tissue also have electrical action. And in 783, French physicist Charles Augustin de Coulomb formulated the Coulomb's law, one of the laws of electricity. In 1780, French mathematician Pierre Simon Laplace discovered the Laplace transform to transform the differential equation to algebraic. And later his transform became a tool in circuit analysis. And then in 1800, Alessandro Volta, he's not a soap opera actor, invented the battery. So this is very important. The battery, and remember, Volta. Have you seen when in battery science we discuss about voltas? It is named after Alessandro, who invented the battery. And then in 1860, Francis Ronalds. And back to volta. That's where even you get voltage, The electric voltage. It came from Volta's name. They honor Alessandro. So if you really want to be remembered, please invent something quickly. So that we can remember you and give you a name, like voltage for Volta. In 1816, English inventor Francis Ronalds built the first working electric telegraph. So electricity was now entering in every invention. Then you find in 1820 Danish physicist Hans Christian Ørsted accidentally discovered an electric field creates a magnetic field. You see? That is where the electricity is very connected to magnetism. And in 1820, André-Marie Ampère published law. He proposed a screw rule. For those of you who did physics, you can remember it. And very nice rule. I can remember the fingering. But I don't have it in my head, but it's amperes, connected to the flow of current. Then German scientist Thomas Johann Seebeck, William Sturgeon developed the first electromagnet. George Ohm introduced the concept of electrical resistance in 1827. And Michael Faraday published the law of induction. In 1831, Joseph Henry developed a prototype DC motor, that's direct current. And in 1832, Hippolyte Pixel developed a prototype DC generator. And in 1833, Michael Faraday developed laws of electrolysis, and he also invented the thermistor. And in 1833, the Wheatstone Bridge was made by Samuel Hunter. In 1836, an Irish priest, Nicholas Callan, invented a transformer. In 1837, the electric relay was invented by Edward Davy. In 1839, Edmund Becquerel discovered the photovoltaic effect. You see, Volta is still alive. And in 1844, Samuel Morse developed telegraphy and the Morse code. In 1845, Gustav Kirchhoff created the Kirchhoff circuit laws. In 1850, Floris Nollet invented a practical AC generator. In 1855, French neurologist Guillaume Duchenne used AC. And in 1856, Charles Purcell proposed telephony. And in 1856, electrically powered lighted house in England. Can you see? 1856, people started lighting their houses in England. And in 1860, Johann Philipp Reis invented the microphone. The microphone is made up of magnets. And where there's a magnetic field, there's an electric field. 1862, Scottish physicist James Maxwell Clerk published 4 equations bearing his name. Very clever, to be remembered. 1866, transatlantic telegraph cable. 1873, Zenobgram was a DC generator. Accidentally discovered that a DC generator works as a DC motor. And in 1876, Pavel Yablokov invented the electric carbon arc lamp. And 1876, the telephone was patented. And in 1877, look at the work that happened in that year. Street lighting and the phonograph by Edison and the primitive loudspeaker by Siemens, where you get your phones. And 1878, hydroelectric plant in Craigside, England. And in 1878 again, the incandescent light bulb was made by Joseph Swan. And in 1879, Harvard Edwin Hall discovered the Hall effect. And in 1879, Edison introduced a long-lasting filament for the incandescent lamp. We love Edison for one thing. He found the filament that can keep electricity trapped in a lamp, because that was a problem. You can see Joseph built the bulb, but he didn't get the filament. Edison got the filament, and we are grateful for his work, because till today, whenever you see a filament, please see Alva Edison. 1880, Pierre Curie and Jacques Curie discovered piezoelectricity. And in 1882, the first thermal power stations in London and New York. 1883, J.J. Thomson invented wavegates. 1887, the gramophone record was invented. 1888, Hertz proved that electromagnetic waves travel over some distance. 1888, again, Tesla and Ferraris got a patent on a device, on the induction motor. And in 1890, Edison, brilliant man, invents the fuse. Congratulations. Circuit breakers were born. 1893, there was a conference of electricians, and they had to define electrical units. 1894, Stepanovich Popov finds and uses for radio waves, building a radio receiver that can detect lightning strikes. 1896, first intercontinental telegram. 1897, Carl Ferdinand Braun invented the cathode ray oscilloscope that later led to our televisions. Beautiful. So let's just stop there. Look at what happened in the 19th century. They hit the code, the electricity. You know, we are calling these things codes. They cracked the electric code, just like the genetic code was cracked. So there are codes to be cracked. We're still yet to crack the consciousness code, and we're still yet to crack the cosmos code, and we're still there's so many codes we are cracking, and every century there are codes that are being cracked. It's time to hack in them, and these guys cracked the electric code, and bang, inventions were born. Everything was being electrified. Everything. Electricity was being used in everything. And this is my best timeline in science, is the electricity timeline. Is the best, because before 1800 there was nothing that was using electricity. All these guys were just working using laws and theories. They didn't have any invention that could survive with electricity. But look at the number of things invented in the 19th century. So what does this tell you? The scientists, the physicists at that time died studying electricity. And they went in. You know, the beauty of the scientists of old, and still today, they give their whole time to their point of study. They study it inside out until they know it left, right, and center, deep and wide. All right, now we enter the 20th century. And in the 20th century, Guglielmo Marconi builds first radio communication system based on radiotelegraphy. In 1901, he did a transmission. And 1901, Peter Cooper Hewitt invented the fluorescent lamp. Hey, all you know, the fluorescent, the white lamp. 1904, John Fleming invented the diode. So are you seeing what was happening? Now people were inventing small things based on the theories, the fluorescent lamp. Because now, yes, Edison had now found the filament. So now people wanted a long lamp of electricity that can give you light. And then the diodes, the small units that store electricity, and then triodes. Then Scottish engineer, 1908. Alan Swinton laid the principles of television. Are you seeing? As early as 1908. And Dutch physicist discovered superconductivity. 1912, Edwin Armstrong developed the electronic oscillator. 1915, Cholesky and Langevin invented sonar. 1917, American engineer Nicholson invented the crystal oscillator. 1918, the multivibrator was invented. And 1919, the standard AM radio receiver. And in 1921, the meter convention was extended to include the electrical units. You see, because electricity can be measured in length, like a river. So that's why there's electric current. It's like water currents and air currents. You see, matter travels in currents. Unbelievable. Edith Clark invents the Clark calculator that was used for solving line equations involving hyperbolic function, allowing electrical engineers to simplify calculations for inductance. Austrian-American engineer Julius Edgar Linfield patented the first FET. In 1926, Yagi-Uda antenna was developed by Japanese engineers, Yagi and Uda. And in 1927, Harold Black invented negative feedback amplifier. 1927, Max Dickmann invented the video camera tube. 1928, first experimental television broadcast. 1929, first public TV broadcast in Germany. 1931, first wind energy plant in the Soviet Union. 1936, Seeley and Forster developed the FM detector circuit. 1936, printed circuit board, very important. One of the greatest electrical inventions is the circuit board. And it was invented by Paul Eisler. Congratulations, that one deserves a high five. And 1936, the radar concept was proposed by Robert Watt. And in 1938, American engineer who happened to be a Russian, Vladimir Zwokin, developed the iconoscope. In 1939, FM radio receiver was developed. 1939 again, the klystron tube in the US. And in 1941, while war was still raging, Konrad Zuse developed the first programmable computer in Berlin. Very important statement that while the world was fighting, the Germans were busy with the German engineer Konrad making the first programmable computer in Berlin. And in 1944, John Logie Baird developed the first color picture tube. Congratulations to John. We have color TV thanks to him. And 1945, the transatlantic telephone cable, and Bardeen and Brattain, together with their group leader William Shockley, invented transistor. 1948, Denis Gabor invented holography. In 1950, Alfred Kassler invented MESA. 1951, after World War II, the first nuclear power plant was built in the USA. And in 1953, the fully transistorized computer in the US. So the computer is a birth child of electricity. It is an electrical product. Electricity gave birth to very many products. Telegraphy, the microphone, the television, the video camera, all of these things, and now the computer, they are children of electricity. That's why I tell you, I honor electricity. I really honor it. It was, and the motors and all of these things, it was really, whoever discovered that this energy can be trapped and put was a genius. 1958, Jack Kilby invented the integrated circuit, you see, all because of electricity. American engineer Myman invented laser. 1962, Nick Holonyak invented the LED. And 1963, video cassette recorder, VCR. 1963, electronic calculator was made. And Stanley Williams created the MEM resistor. And then now we come, look at all these things that were made. Brief history of electronics timeline. All of this because of electricity. Let's go through them fast, and then we'll be done. So, the brief history of electronics, and therefore based on electricity. When electricity was discovered and understood in 1808, Dalton brought the atomic theory. The theory that there's an atom, the part of what do you call it, a life, not necessarily life unit, in a matter that we have made of atoms. And so the atomic theory was born through Dalton. And then cathode rays by Crookes, 1878. 1895, X-rays by Röntgen. And in 1900, the old quantum theory came with Planck. And 1905, one of the greatest theories in science, theory of relativity, was found by Einstein. And 1918, atomic transmutation by Rutherford, another brilliant man. 1932, the neutron. Apart from the electron, they found the neutrons, and that was found by Chadwick. And 1932, the particle accelerator, Crockford and Walton. And 1935, scanning electron microscope, found by Knoll. 1937, xerography was found by Carlson. 1937, oscillograph, the measuring of oscillations, was invented by Van Aden and Dowling and Bolin. And the modem, can you imagine the modem you use in your when you're doing the internet? Look at when it was born. It was born in 1950. The birth certificate is still being looked for. And it was invented by MIT and Bell Labs. Then the Kerner mapping technique was digital logic. Logic gates and all of that was invented by Kerner. And 1952, a digital voltmeter by Kay. And 1954, solar battery by Chaplin, Fuller, and Pearson. 1956, transatlantic telephone cable, UK and US. They had to share. 1957, Sputnik 1 satellite created by Soviet Union. 1957, the nuclear missile, Kurchatov, Soviet Union. So you can see Russia is the doyen of nuclear missiles. 1957, Fortran programming language, Watson Scientific. 1959, first one-piece plain paper photocopier, Xerox 914 by Xerox. And 1959, Veroboard stripboard by Terry Fitzpatrick. 1961, the first electronic clock made by Vogel and Sire, patented by Alexander Bain in 1840. So can you imagine, as I told you, when the clock was created, even if the sun never shines, we will still have time. That is the beauty of the clock, is that even if the sun dies today, it just goes up and switches off. We have clocks to tell us the time. So don't worry, we are safe. 1963, the first commercially successful audio compact cassette by Philips Corporation. Basic programming language was created by Kemeny and Katz. 1964, liquid crystal display, LCD, George H. Hillmeyer. 1966, the fiber optics communications by Cow and Hockham. 1960s, digital fax machine by Dacom. And 1969, Unix operating system. 1970, the first microprocessor by Intel. 1970, the first commercially available DRAM memory by IBM. 1971, EPROM. Not available. We do not know who it is. 1971, Pascal programming language by Worth. First microcomputer on a chip was created by Intel. 1971, laser printer by Xerox. 8008 processor by Intel. 1972, the first programmable word processor, automatic electronic systems. And 1972, the diskette, not available. 1972, ATM machine. Can you see how old your ATMs are? They are that old, and they were created by IBM. And 1973, Josephson Junction, IBM. And Tunnable Continuous Wave Laser by Bell Labs. And in 1973, the Ethernet by Metcalfe. Now, this is the one I love to see. Mobile phone, the first mobile phone born on planet Earth was born in the year 1973. And its parents were John F. Mitchell and Dr. Martin Cooper of Motorola. Those are the parents. Same sex, for those of you who fear. Who fear gay parents, there you are. Two men gave birth to the mobile phone. 1974, C, programming language by Kenihan and Ritchie. 1974, programmable pocket calculator, Hewlett Packard. 1975, basic for personal computers by Allen. 1975, first personal computer by by Roberts. 1975, the first digital camera by Steven Sasson, Kodak. 1975, integrated optical circuits, Reinhardt and Logan. 1975, optical character recognition by Nuance Communications. 1975, CCD scanner by Kurzweil. Yay! Love Ray. 1975, text-to-speech by Kurzweil, Computer Products. And 1975, commercial reading machine for the blind by Kurzweil, Computer Products. 1976, Apple One computer, Wozniak Jobs. And 1977, sorry, forgive me, Trinity Computers expanding home computing through Apple II, Commodore PET, and TRS-80 by Apple and Tandy and Commodore. 1977. Interesting. The Commodore singers were around at that time. Nice. First handled electronic game, Mattel. And 1978, Word Perfect by Satellite Software. And in 1980, the 3.5-inch diskette was made. They do not know who did that. He's an orphan. 1980, VIC-20 Commodore Business Machines. 1981, IBM Personal Computer by IBM. And Bill Gates came into the picture with the MS-DOS and with Microsoft. And 1981, Wet Solar Cell by Bayer AG. Commodores continue with reigning with the 64, Commodore 64, 1982. And 1982, the first commercially marketed language, large vocabulary speech recognition by Kurzweil and Dragon Systems. 1983, satellite television, U.S. satellite communications. 1983, the first built-in hard drive IBM PS PC XT by IBM, and C++ programming language by Stutztrup in 1983. Macintosh computer introduced by Apple Computer 1984. CD-ROM player for personal computers, Philips 1984. Ooh, this is one of my best. The first music synthesizer, Kurzweil K250, capable of recreating the grand piano. And oh, this one, we just want to honor Kurzweil Music Systems. It was a great job. Oh, I love playing keyboard, and one of the things that shocks me is the recreation of the grand piano. Oh, it's beyond description. These guys really did a great job, and I know Ray even has a keyboard after his name. And but I love music synthesizers. They sound so well. And you see, all of this, when you play a keyboard, you're playing electricity. You're just playing with electricity. It's just beautiful. And 1984 Amiga computer was introduced. Commodore's still doing work. 1985, 300,000 simultaneous telephone conversations over one single optical fiber. AT&T and Bell Labs. 1874 Warmer superconductivity by Carl Alex. And microprocessor 8386 by Intel. And 1989 commercial handled GPS receiver by Magellan Navigations. And 1989 silicon germanium transistors by IBM, and the 486 microprocessor by Intel in 1990. And in 1993, weather control device by HAP, weather control through US, that's United States of America. 1984, the Pentium processor by Intel. Look at when Bluetooth was born. 1994, by Ericsson. And the first DVD player ever made by Tatung Company, 1994. And the Alpha 21164 processor by Digital Equipment with the P2SC processor by IBM. And these are consumer electronics we've seen. And this is from the electronic. You can see the watchmakers, the Fire photo phone, and the rectifier. And you can find all of these, what we've gone through up there. The electric motor, and Thomas Edison, cathode ray tube, and all of this. Nikola Tesla, the first wireless remote control of a model ship. Unbelievable. Tesla is great. You just, when you read these things and you just say, wow. But it's not really about greatness. It's that these things existed in nature. It's just that humans studied nature so well. So we've got to close from here, but you got to know, we'll do part 2. Electricity is natural, and we'll pick up from there next time. All right, guys.